All right, thanks so much for joining me today on working on my capstone project for my BCC PIPD. And the topic today, as you know, is about visible mending. So I'll just give you a brief agenda of what we're going to do. So I'll do some introductions, talk to you about why visible mending, why you should do it, why it's interesting. We'll do a little show and tell on the things that you've brought that you want to work on. Then I'll take you through two different demos, one on how to do darning in terms of sort of filling in a hole with a weaving method. And we'll also talk about doing sashiko mending or adding patches. So not all patching is sashiko and not all sashiko is patching, but I'll give you two examples of that, show you sort of how they work. And then we'll do some workshop time just to work on your projects, and I'll help get you sorted out, and we'll go through tools that we have and all the stuff that I brought you're welcome to use to get you on your way. And then we'll just regroup and see how you've come along and what some next steps are. So that's sort of the agenda. I figure we should be under 90 minutes unless we get really into it and we just don't want to stop. But I'll try and do this stuff at the beginning fairly quickly so the bulk of the time, at least half of it really is working on your projects. So as I mentioned, thank you for having me, Tristan and Stephanie. Thanks for hosting here at Limestone. And I wanted to acknowledge that we're meeting in the traditional land of the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam, and Squamish people. And I think where this is really relevant to this project is, you know, we're sharing the planet, we're sharing our natural surroundings, and part of visible mending is the slow fashion movement, and really thinking more sustainably about what we're doing and kind of going against fast fashion. So I think that that's a nice way for us to give back to the planet and, you know, recognize that we're sharing this land and we should be taking care of it. So on that note, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about, I looked up some facts or statistics related to the fast fashion industry, and just wanted to give you some kind of things to chew on about the sustainability part. So one of the things I looked up was reviewmuse.ca, and I'm happy to forward the links later, but the average Canadian household spends $3,344 on clothing and accessories in 2019. So that's a lot of money that we're putting out. In June 2022, the most popular fashion app in Canada was Shein, which is just pure fast fashion and not necessarily thinking about our environment. And just, it's kind of disposable fashion, really. According to the fashion industry statistics, producing one cotton t-shirt is 2,700 liters of water, and that's about 2.5 years of drinking water for one person.
Wow, that's a lot.
For one t-shirt. Yeah. And then from earth.org, clothing sales doubled from 100 billion to 200 billion units a year globally. And the average number of times an item was worn decreased by 36%. So we're buying twice as much and using it for a third less time. Wow. Garments given up early and thrown out instead of recycling combine to produce an estimated $500 billion of waste each year. So we're chucking stuff out. 20% of global wastewater comes from textile dyeing. And fast fashion produces 500,000 tons of microplastics. So everything that you have that has nylon in it, rayon, any of that, that's actually coated in a plastic. And each time you put it through the wash and dryer, little bits sort of shed off. And so that's all winding up in our water streams. And returns of items bought online exceed the amount of purchased goods by 30%. So we are returning more than we are keeping. So it's a little,
how does that even work?
well, just because of the, like, people are buying, and then, like, they're returning more than they keep.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
moving online and,
Yeah.
and maybe like when you
Yeah,
buy from
so
online.
yeah, if you buy 10 things, you're
Yeah.
keeping like less than 7. So, you know, and then, you know, what's slow fashion? So slow fashion is a movement that advocates for the environment, social justice in the fashion industry, and it zeroes in on the problem of overproduction and overconsumption. But it also factors in things like buying locally, supporting local makers, living wage for people that are making our clothes. So it's not just about overuse, but also thinking a little bit more about who you're purchasing from. It's a shift from quantity to quality, both in production and consumption. And it's not about just this buy more. It's, you know, taking a step away from that. So it's not saying don't buy anything, but just it's not necessarily about dry. Or, you know, I've cut off the legs of old jeans that are just way beyond repair and using that denim as a patch for something else. Or when you cut up your jeans and you use it to make a, I don't know, pillow cover or a bag or something like that. So the things that we can do to, you know, that we have the power to do or to repair and take care of our clothes. So look at the washing instructions, and, you know, if you have the benefit of line drying or not putting everything through the dryer or washing in cold water, those prolong the life of your clothing. It's not just about electricity consumption. Your clothes will last longer. You know, consider wearing secondhand clothing. So, you know, while Shan is the #1 search thing, the #2 fashion app was actually Poshmark. So there is a generation younger that's all about reselling the stuff that they bought. So I don't know if it's about why they're doing it, if it's for the money or to keep it out of donation, but either way, you know, consider that secondhand and shop mindfully. Like when you're purchasing things, you know, have a look at the label and what is that made out of, and is it something durable? And I think one of our challenges with jeans, you know, cheap jeans, they're nice because they're cheap, but they don't last as long. And it's also very hard to find 100% cotton jeans anymore. They almost all have some sort of spandex or nylon built into them, and they don't last as long. And then, you know, historically, mending was a sign of poverty, but that's changed over the years. You know, people were patching things because they couldn't afford to buy new clothes, and it wasn't an available option for them. But when you got into the mid-70s, there was, you know, the punk movement, and they embraced like patching and sticking it to the man and the anti-establishment. And then that moved into the grunge era of like, yeah, I'm gonna wear stuff with rips in it. So they weren't necessarily mending, but it wasn't about having this perfect fashion. And now that's sort of moved into slow fashion movement. But so when you think about it, patching your clothes and wearing them as they are and celebrating the holes and rips and things that you've done through living life is a little bit punk. So you're not uncool and you're not cheap, you're just a little bit punk. So I just thought I would ask, what's your experience with mending? Have any of you tried doing any mending?
I would say sewing a new button, sewing on a button that fell off
That
is probably
is
the
something.
extent of my
That's
mending.
the extent of your mending?
Yes. Well, people have already seen these man capris that belong to my husband that have been repaired many times already by myself and others. And I tend to do it with the sewing machine because that's faster, but you know, he really enjoys these, and he has 2 other pairs that I also repair frequently, and you know, it's great. I think he is a good example for me in being slower about fashion and re-wearing things. I also have a wool sock of his that is from my darning pile, as well as jeans that I need to repair that I've already repaired once. So I do try to mend things, but sometimes I feel like, oh my goodness, the amount of time that it takes to mend a pair of wool socks like this that are, maybe you paid $3.99 for, and it takes me an hour to repair them. My time is worth more than $3.99. But there again, if I'm doing it while watching TV or a movie or something, then why not? And it does mean that something doesn't go into the landfill, or at the worst, or the off to secondhand clothing store at the best. So, I would like to be more, do more of being slower with fashion and fashion choices, as well as mending and making clothes last longer.
Now I see the famous pants. The famous pants.
Have you had any experience with mending, or?
Yeah, I grew up in Ukraine, so we, my mom and grandma, they mended things. I tried to learn. I left so young, I didn't really get good at it, and then I'm actually not good at hand stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I do want to learn. I do want to understand. I keep items that I like, and there are holes in them, and I can't wear them anymore. But I don't know how to repair them.
Well, hopefully we'll give you some tips on something that you can go forward with, and part of this is about building a connection with your clothes too. And so even if it still just becomes you're wearing it around home because you're still I'm not sure, we get to keep those favorite things. Do you have any experience with mending?
A little bit. I do have a lot of socks with holes, and they're in my drawer, so they haven't gone into the landfill, and I know they can be fixed, but I just don't know how to. I've done just very basic, a straight stitch by hand, but I would be really interested to know different kinds of stitches and which ones are more, I guess, especially if there's clothes that you're always moving in, and I want the stitch to be able to be strong and be able to not essentially rip again. So I'm really interested to know different kinds of stitches and which ones, depending on, I guess, the item or the material of the clothing, that can last long, and I'd just be interested to know how to do those kinds of stitches.
Well, hopefully I can help you with that, and if not, I can definitely direct you to some really great resources that I've encountered over the time.
Yeah.
With that, Jana?
Yeah, I've just done some really basic, tears in shirts, more tears than something where it's been worn through, and so that's why I'm really excited with this class, because I think it will help me keep things a little bit longer that I haven't been able to mend myself.
Great. So I'll just show you on the table over here. I have a few items of random things that I've mended over the years. So a toque that got a hole on the edge, which sometimes that can be kind of a annoying thing to deal with. I knit a lot of socks. So my background is I learned to knit when I was 5, and I've been knitting my whole life, and I've learned how to sew, and now I spin yarn. And if I'm spending this much time knitting some awesome socks and they get a hole in them, and they do, because moths love our house, and there's certain yarns that they love most, I'm not giving them up. But so this would be an example of a weaving mend that I'll show you how to do, that can work on knitted fabric or just about anything. You can use it for filling in a hole. And then I think on the other matching sock, I've got, this would be duplicate stitch. So this is where you go over the stitches. So if you have sweaters and things like that, so those are two ways that you can be repairing knitted items. I have these jeans that they're the crappiest jeans ever, but they fit, and I've repaired them many times. And so this would be some examples of sashiko, and these are ones that admittedly I pretty much only wear at home and dropping off at school, but I keep them in rotation, and I've lazy hems because I'm short. And so this is an example of some sashiko that I'll show you how to do. which is really great for woven fabrics. It's done a lot on denim, but it could be done on pretty much any, it can be done on any fabric, but it's a Japanese style of stitching that when you really get into it, they've got some pretty incredible patterns and designs, these geometric shapes, but I'll take you through some of the basics of it. But I have other items, and feel free to have a look at them. So I've got, you know, stretchy workout pants that I wear to hockey all the time, and just and I just don't really care if you can see that I've mended them. I'm okay with that, because it's just a little bit of saying, hey, I didn't throw it out, and my body parts are contained in my clothes, so they're totally appropriate to wear. So you can, with visible mending, the focus is a little bit more on the celebration of the garment versus hiding the fact it had, but you can use the same techniques and just be matching thread colors and things like that if you're wanting it to be a little more inconspicuous and a little less obvious what you've been up to. But this is just an example of some of the things that we'll kind of work through, and we can decide on each, whatever your project is, which technique we want to use. But I'll show you the two that are kind of the main ones that will work on anything. So one of the things that is a bit important is knowing what tools you need for mending, and really it's very little that you actually need. You need scissors of some sort to be able to cut thread. You need some sort of thread. It could be embroidery floss. It could be this like pearl cotton. It could be just basic, just whatever, different kinds of thread or a yarn. So depending on what your garment is, you need that. And then needles. That's the minimum that you need. Needle, some sort of yarn or thread, and scissors, because you'll have a hard time doing any of it without all three of these. Beyond that, the sky's kind of the limit on how many different things are useful. So items that I use quite often. Okay, so I'll just resume on like the tools and that. So, you know, the minimum was a thread, needle, and scissors is what you really need. What you can get more in depth on other things based on how fancy you want to get or what else you want to do, and some tools will make it easier. So one that I use quite a bit is a darning mushroom. So this is one that I bought from a handcrafter, but you can, I also bought this one on Amazon for about $12. So it's a little bit smaller, but it also came with needles and that sort of thing. But before I got that, I had used a mason jar and an elastic band, so you can put the fabric in and just put an elastic band over it. So it's nice that it provides a hard surface underneath, particularly for the weaving type items. So it's quite helpful for mending. Other things that can be handy if you've got them around are embroidery hoops. So sometimes we've collected them over the years from brilliant ideas. And sometimes we haven't, but they're fairly easy to come by, not necessary, but can be helpful. Really, one that's been trending a lot, and you can buy a very expensive handcrafted one or cheap ones on Amazon that work just as well. This is it's called a speed weave, and so it's a kind of loom that you can, so it's kind of like a darning thing where you hook it in, but then you've got these hooks that you can latch your fabric around, and so when you do row, and then you can flip them back and forth, and it will change what thread lifts up that makes the weaving a little bit easier. Totally not necessary, totally fun. Like it's not something you need, and these go for usually maybe $10 or $15 on Amazon, or I have one that's quite large, so good for a much bigger area. So the weaving type things are really great for filling in holes. If you wind up with bits and bobs of yarn, it's great to hang on to them.
Sorry to interrupt, Tara, but did you say that you have a handout that you're going to have a bunch of these things on? Does it include the speed weaver?
I don't have the link for that, but I can send links to everybody on it. But like, it is something that I mentioned is something that you might want to look at.
Yeah.
having.
That's a great birthday present for my mother.
And then when you're looking at doing sashiko, so stuff with denim, there's sashiko thread. So there's kind of this kind, or we sell it like this. So this one's a little bit lighter. This one's a little heavier weight, so you can kind of match it to the item you're working with. I got this from Amazon, but you can also, there's places like Aruna that I'll send you the link for, who wrote that book, the Visible Mending one. She sells it through her website as well.
Is sashiko thread different than like embroidery thread?
It is, so it's very similar. So it's also 100% cotton, but it's a much tighter spin on it, so it's more durable. But if you can't get it, embroidery floss has done a very good job of many things. But sometimes embroidery floss is a little bit too thick, and then once you split the thread, so maybe using 3 instead of all 6, they're just not quite as durable. But it also depends on what you're mending, where it is, what, so for my son Matthew with some jeans that he blew the knee out, I just used embroidery floss. And because by the time he's going to wear through it again, he'll have outgrown the pants. So, and if he does go through it again, it's easy to repair. But say for a denim that I would rather not mend multiple times, and it's going through 2 layers of denim, the sashiko thread is a little easier to work with. You could use, so I use a lot these darning needles that are older than all of us because they came out of my grandma's sewing book. I have no idea how old they are, but they cost 79 cents, so maybe that gives you an indication. But there's also sashiko needles that they're quite sharp, but they're a longer needle, so you can load them up. So they're kind of optional things that you don't really need. Pinking shears can be nice if you're doing a lot of patching, just so you don't have to finish the edges of the patch. But if you don't have them, don't buy them. Like, you don't need them. But if you, sometimes we have things kicking around, so they have a zigzag pattern. So those are the safety pins are handy. A ruler can be handy. And I recently discovered this. Sometimes it's called stick and stitch, sometimes it's called magic paper, but this is kind of like interfacing, but it's not sticky at all. And I'll show you that you can draw on it, like write on it with a pen, and have it on the fabric. You can stitch through it, and then you just put it in hot water, and it just dissolves, and like it was never there. So it's how you can do straight lines and stuff like that without freehand. Rulers are handy, not necessary, but it depends on your level of perfection and what you like going into. For pens, I find these friction pens are good because they come off with heat, like you could just put an iron on it, it also washes off. If you're feeling brave, those jeans, when I mended them, I used one of Matthew's Crayola markers because they're washable. Like if you've had kids and they get marker all over them, and you put it through the wash, it comes out. So sometimes I just use these for if I want to mark a pattern on. So these are kind of this is like the full gamut of tools that you could use. A lot of it you probably have kicking around your house. If any of you have wound up with something of your mother's or grandmother's or something from kids' crafts and it's tucked away in the junk drawer, you probably actually have most of these things at home already. Another thing, if you don't want to use a jar, some people use a light bulb instead of a darning washer. Or I've even used like the orange hockey balls that hadn't been played with yet, and it was clean. So just sometimes just something that's hard and smooth that you can fit in it. So that's kind of the lay of the land with the tools. Does anybody have any questions on tools? No? All right, so we'll get into doing a mend. So I thought the first thing I'd do is, these socks are somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 years old. They have a hole on the top of the toe, and I just like them. So I will show you how we can do a little weave to fill in a hole, and I I will roll up a chair and show you how this nonsense is done. So when you're using a darning mushroom, you want to pull it in and get the hole kind of over the middle, and then with these stretchy fabrics, you'll want to stretch it a little bit so that when you're wearing it and it stretches out, it's not all puckered and that. So there is a little groove around the darning mushroom that this elastic will hold it taut. And then I'm just going to roll up a chair and let you guys, how would you like to sit so you can see? You want to come down there? You want me to go over?
Maybe
You want to go in here?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not on.
Oh, that's not.
Oh.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, we can roll down.
Okay. So,
And you can stand behind you.
it's down, sure.
Okay, sure.
You've got the benefit of me in shorty pants.
That's what I was
So,
thinking.
I'm just going to use we'll use some embroidery floss. So usually what you want to do when you're picking your materials for mending is to think about like how thick the fabric is and where the wearing is to judge what it is. So something like this, like with my socks that I was darning, I use the same, I happen to still have some of the original yarn, and I use that because it's the same weight. If you're doing a sweater and it's a thick sweater, you use a thicker yarn, but if you were using a really lightweight fabric, you want something similar weight. So there isn't really a lot of rules. I could use a bulky yarn and it would all be fine.
I find sometimes if I darn socks and the darn is on the bottom, then I find it really irritating to my foot. So I think
Yeah, it's, well, I find when you first put it on, they're annoying, and then
it sort of wears.
like as you go through the day, it's less annoying. So one of the things too is you don't want to make your thread too long. It's better to use, like, to thread your needle more than one time than to have a really long thread, because then you'll wind up getting more tangles in it as you're trying to do it. Another thing is when I'm doing it, I'm not going to put a knot in it. I'll leave an amount out that later on I can poke through and finish it on the other side. So just so I don't have a knot that becomes annoying. So what you want to do is like look around the hole and pick an area a little ways away from it that the fabric is still durable, that isn't worn as well. And so sometimes you have to cover more area just because there's looser bits. And so I'll just start out over here. And then I'm just gonna do some, so this will have some mend kind of all around it. It's not just the hole. So I'll leave that there to make sure I've got enough to go back in later. And you're gonna go up and down. And you need to leave a little bit of space so that when you're filling in your weave later, you have space for the weft. So right now, this would be the warp, if you call it, that's going north-south, up and down. So you just keep going a little bit past, and so now I'm at the spot where there's a hole, so I just skip over the hole. And when you're doing it, you don't want to pull too tight on the bend, like when you flip around to go the other direction. You don't want to pull really tight on this, because then you could, depending on the fabric, make a hole. Like if you're like really tight, it doesn't need to be that tight. So you just,
Looks like you're going up and down a lot. Are you doing like an in and out each time you're doing that, or are you just kind of finding the best place?
I'm just going where the needle kind of wants to go. The more, as it's about part of what you like some people will just go, they won't have these sort of seed stitches around. They would just go, they just come here and go straight up and go down and not have lines around. I just think it is more likely to be secure
Yeah.
if I'm picking up more stitches around it. And I'm also, I don't really care if I've got a whole bunch of orange thread going around it. So with the speed weave, it's a little bit different in that usually you just come up once and then you hook around the hook at the top and come back down. So you're only securing it along the bottom edge when you are putting in the warp.
And then vertical, there's almost a thread, just plain thread.
Yeah. Once we,
So you don't actually put the fabric together, you're basically making new fabric over top of
Yeah.
the hole.
yeah, that really is what you're doing. You're filling in the hole with a new piece of fabric. And you can, like how close you make these stitches kind of depends on the thickness of the thread that you're using. So if I were using this thread that's much thinner, I would need to have them closer. I could be a little bit closer on these, but you don't want them overlapping or it will be very difficult when you're trying to put the weave in later. And then so that one got mostly past the hole, so I'll just do one or two more past it. Just to make sure that I'm fully around the secured, like the area of fabric that hasn't been damaged.
You can see that the mushroom really helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get nice and smooth.
I like that hockey ball idea. For the heel of the
Yeah,
sock.
and you know, actually like jars, that even just using the jar lid with an elastic around the rim is quite good, but this one's handy because it's got a nice solid base. So now that we've covered it up and I'm over here, so again, this is not where the hole is, so whether or not you're weaving through here isn't as important, but you kind of want to do a similar up and down across threads all the way to where you started.
Are you being precise there with matching your up and downs to your warp thread?
While I'm in this part
Outside
of
the hole
outside
area?
of the hole, I'm not, but then once I am, like once I get to where the hole is, I will try and be more precise with it, but you know, to each their own. You do what you want, you do you. There's also one of the books I have there, they have a whole bunch of patterns in actually doing different designs
Cool.
with the weaves, so
Depends how fancy you want to be.
Yeah.
If it's
So are you-
seating or not.
so this one I'm gonna go under, so I'm now at this point, I'm right along the edge of the hole, so I'm just trying to capture the under
So
over.
it's truly weaving,
It truly is,
like you're weaving the
Weaving.
fabric.
Does it matter, are you doing an odd or even number so that
Doesn't
when
matter.
you weave back and forth it starts?
because
going
you
down?
can pick up on either
Right.
edge around there, you can do some leading up
Good.
to it. So I went over, so I'm gonna go under. Again, it's not, it really isn't critical, but it will make it more durable and it's prettier. And so this too is like if you're doing something with like a sweater or something like that and you're using wool, this can be where it's a little bit fun using like variegated yarns. There's a lot of examples where at a certain point you could switch to a different color of thread, and so you could wind up with a different kind of checkerboard or just different patterns that can make a little statement themselves.
And it really is for every thread, right? Like under every thread. you
Yeah.
go.
Particularly through the hole. Once you're on either side of the fabric, it doesn't matter so much. But you're really wanting to fill in the hole. And so you can, if you think they're getting too close. So this is where you want to leave enough space that you can get the needle up and down through doing the weave, but not so far apart that you have a really loose fabric, but you're saving a garment from the garbage. Doesn't have to be perfect.
Especially like a sock like this.
Yeah.
Like it's no one's
This
gonna
is
see it but
a
you.
nasty old sport sock that is tragically old that I just refuse to get rid of. Because
Why you need to, right? Because it's
exactly, and
It's
it's just
15
so
years.
hole on the top of my sock. Well, and for my hockey skates, I like to wear long sport socks that go higher than the boot of the skate. But I only wear them for hockey one night a week. So why would I buy more for that?
And some sports socks are very expensive. Like
Yeah.
I look at my running socks, they're $20 each, and they're just for the short ones. I don't want the tall ones.
So here I've gotten to where the seam is on the toe, and so I'm past the hole, and it's being a bit of a tricky because the fabric is thicker through the seam of the toe. So we're just winging it a little. There's a lot of just winging it. So
But the length of the needle does matter. Like a darning needle, like I understand now that it does have to be long than your typical needles because how else are you gonna
It's
be
just
passing through the
easier, yeah. So, but if you don't have one and you want to do something, just use the tools that you have. But it is helpful to
Yeah.
have it. So now I've gotten here and my thread's getting a little bit short. I'm gonna take this off and I'll poke my needle in. Try not to lose it.
Oh, it looks good on the back too. Nice and like pretty smooth.
Yeah.
And then, so I'll just pick up a few threads, and then when you have it like that, you can just go through the hole and do that a time or two. And you know, how much you want to knot it depends on how much you trust your thread or how much you don't want to do this job again. And then just pull it through, and then I like to leave a little bit of a tail that, just so that what happens is now when you stretch the sock, if it pulls back in, it hasn't pulled out, and you can always go back later and make it shorter again. So then the other bit, I lick my thread. So the other thing too with your needles is you're wanting to make sure that you have an eye big enough for whatever fabric you have. So that's where the darning needles often have a little bit bigger eye. So again with this, you just now poking it through to the other side and do the same thing to secure it. But now you don't have a big knot inside your sock either. Because this is the top of the toe, it's would be less annoying than other
Like on the
locations.
ball of your foot or something.
Yeah.
But so this is the other thing too, like when you think about like if it's on, you know, inside your pants in a spot that rubs a lot, sometimes it's nice hiding the knot in between the layers, between the fabric and the patch. Sorry, I'll fix that later. Anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is just a basic weave that you can use. So I probably would have gone, if I took more time, do a little bit tighter weave on it, but the hole is closed.
Yeah,
And I no longer have a hole in my sock.
amazing.
So that's the basic weave and using a darning mushroom. But yeah, you can use a jar lid or a speed weave. They're all the same kind of concept. And with this, you can use this on any type of fabric. So this is knitwear, so it's something that stretches. You can use it in here, and you can also use it on like a weaved fabric equally well. So then I'll go into the other one. This should go keep you around here. Did you have any questions about this? Does it seem doable that you could take it
So doable.
Yeah, again, you answered the question. I was really worried about stretch fabrics. So the fact he says it can be, it'll stretch with it, that's handy. I would hear about
Yeah, and so like with the workout pants that I did, instead of using the darning mushroom on some of it I just held it with like some of them I put a patch underneath, and when I was sewing it in, I held it with a hoop instead. But so this is the other project that I'll show you for the sashiko and denim, fixing some jeans. So I've patched one side already. And then, so I have another blown out thigh, or about to be blown out, like one more wearing. And it's the last wearing is dangerously close to an issue. So when you're thinking about patching, so similar to the sock and the mending, you want to look at the area that you're mending and how big is their weakness. So while the hole really is just here, there's a weakness that's heading up towards here, and it's starting to come down here. So you want to mend an area, include an area larger than what it is, so that it's attaching onto good fabric, so that if it continues to deteriorate, the other fabric's there. The other thing with this type of stitching is even all of these little stitches are providing support to the fabric, not just the patch below. So you can extend the stitching beyond the patch. They also help protect the edges from fraying a bit. So they might still fray a little bit. When you have a large patch underneath, yes, you can feel it, but usually after you've got them on for a little while, you stop noticing it and it's not so bothersome. You can patch under or over with denim, and it's totally your preference and what you like. So in this case, I'll go under versus over. And then for the idea with the sashiko stitching, they tend to do these beautiful geometric patterns, and so you have options where you could either draw out a grid or draw the pattern onto the denim. And you could use things like the markers or one of these erasable pens, and you can draw that on. So the ones I did there were kind of the hexagons or pentagons or whatever shape I did. Those ones I just, I used a stencil and drew the outside shape, and then I drew in the little lines, and I just drew it on there. But I wanted to demonstrate this magic paper, or it goes by many names. So stick and stitch is one that it's actually sticky on one side. But what I did is from this book, in the back, she's got a couple of patterns.
Oh, nice.
And so I just cut off a piece of this that was about the same size, as a little bit bigger than the patch, and then I just put it on here and I traced over it, and it's gonna look amazing. And I didn't freehand it at all because there's no way it would work.
Oh, that looks like it was printed.
And for the pen, I just used like one of these like heat erasable pens. So when you're doing it, you do want to think about like a bit of the contrast and how well you'll be able to see it. So this will be a good daylight project versus an evening dim lighting, because my eyes have reached a certain age that are sometimes disagreeable to certain tasks. But so the hardest part of this is getting everything lined up and flat. So now all my papers are in my way. So I want to make sure that so the denim, this is just from another pair of jeans, and I tried picking one that has similar stretchiness to it as the original jeans. Can't always do that, but you know, sometimes it works out that you have some that you can. And then I know that I'm wanting to get up particularly to this seam and along there. So I'm just gonna line it up, and then you want to make sure you're getting it flat and not having any wrinkles. So this is this is just where it's tricky putting the effort in. And then I just use some safety pins to tack it in place. You could hand baste it. You could use straight pins, like safety pins, because I poke myself less. Although they're a little trickier for trying to take them out from the other side, or like working around them, because they take a little bit more space. Nothing is flawless. There is Aruna, who wrote that one book. She actually uses glue sticks a lot, and just like the Yoo-hoo glue or whatever, like your kids' glue sticks. She will often glue things in place because it's washable glue.
Cool.
I just think it's a little bit weird, like putting my needle through the glue.
Then your needle's all sticky. That's annoying.
Yeah. So I'm just roughly pinning this down, and then I'll flip it over and put the patch on. And then all of this is just the running stitch, like when you were saying, you know, you're interested in learning more stitches. Well, in this case, the running stitch is all you need to know. Because you're putting so many rows of it in there, it provides a lot of stability.
Right.
And is fast. And it's with sashiko, the idea is that you're that you can load up several stitches at once before you push it through.
Is
That's
all
a
of
dud too.
the Sashisco stitch a running stitch?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So when you're looking at some of the other things, if you like, back stitching can be something that is good to make something really solid. Some of these pins are not sharp. They don't go through very easily. So excuse me while I get rid of dud pins.
Did you just buy a pack of pins somewhere?
No, I used to have I used to make quilts. Oh, these are quilting pins. And I rummaged through a junk drawer. It's like, oh yeah, there's a whole bag of pins.
I like the idea of pins you don't poke
Yeah.
yourself as often.
Yeah.
So now I'm just flipping it over so that I can add this on. And then when you think about the pattern, you might want to, depending on what the pattern is, might influence how you orient it. Because this is curves, I kind of feel like I want the curves going up rather than, I don't want it looking like
These are sagging down.
or air's flowing out like a cloud of poop. I learned the hard way doing some tie-dye that, like, when you put tie-dye in certain areas, it has a different look than maybe you intended.
Yeah.
The placement of certain colors is like, oh. So I'm just going to, I've made this bigger than the actual patch itself. And I'm just going to, and you don't have to fill in every line as you go along. Like, you can start and stop wherever you feel like, but I just wanted to fill up the whole sheet just so I can come and go as I please on it. So, like, you'll run into, like, because I want this to go right up against this seam, because some of my wearing is along the seam, I'm having it overlap. So, like, on this one, I had some of the stitches go through the seam, and it can be challenging to stitch there, but and you don't have to do it, but that just helps get it into that more durable thing. So this is, again, where it's just a little bit tricky because I want to catch what's underneath, and you can use straight pins or whatever your preference is. And once this is all pinned together and you start working on it, it actually stays where it wants to be fairly well without shifting around. You don't need a lot of pins. One of the things that I try to do with denim patching, especially where it's on stretchier fabrics, is to start near the middle of the mend and work one way and then work the other way, just to minimize where there might be, to try and minimize wrinkles and bubbles, and because some of the denim that like particularly that pair of jeans I have there, like where it's kind of shot a little bit. The fabric is wrinkly, and so I was just trying to get it as flat as I can on something that doesn't want to be flat anymore.
So you wouldn't start, like, say, the top and work your way down? Like, you'll start half, like, midway of the pattern, going down the other...
Yeah, I tried to start midway, and then so I can keep it flat as I, like, sort of work out, so that if it needs to shift around, I've started near something. It's kind of like if you've ever done any cross stitch, they tell you to start right in the center of the piece of fabric with the center stitch and work out, so you don't accidentally start in one corner and you run out of space, or now you can't frame it because you didn't leave enough. It just gives you a bit of buffer.
Yeah, I would imagine it's kind of like when you're sewing garments and you're doing the stay stitching around, like for the neck of a top or something, you're stay stitching it to keep it secure, like so that it doesn't stretch out in the wrong direction as you're doing the rest of your sewing. But when you're doing it, you don't kind of start at one shoulder and go around to the other shoulder. You start at one shoulder and go to the middle, and then you start at the other shoulder and go to the middle. So you're keeping it, you're not like pulling it askew. So by doing that, you're kind of doing the same thing. You're going to ensure that you've got an even application.
Yeah.
Well, it's a cute little package here you've got.
Yeah, I spent an exorbitant amount of money on it. It's wonderful. It's handcrafted, and it came with all the stuff in it, and you know, sometimes you gotta treat yourself, right?
Yeah.
So these are Sashiko needles. So I mean, I could totally, on other ones I've totally used a darning needle before. But so I'll probably go with one a bit shorter because I'm doing lots of curves on here, and I'll just get a little bit started to show you kind of how we roll with it, and then we'll get working on your project.
Underneath there, like
no, so this is you could. Sometimes I've shoved a book under it while I'm getting started, but then once you're actually stitching, I just hold it in my hand, because you'll find when you're doing stuff like this, you're zigzagging around all over the place, and you're sticking your hand down the waistband, and then you're sticking your hand up a pant leg, and like, because you're changing directions a lot, it so this is the same one as that one. I'll just match it up. They kind of wrap it funny.
So with that kind of repair, where you've got it on the inside of the top of both of the legs,
Yes.
did you consider using one piece of fabric that went down, like in one patch behind for both legs?
strip of fabric.
The reason why I wouldn't do that is because when you look at how denim is, like the grain and how the direction it stretches, these actually are, in this area, is kind of running on a diagonal. So I would be concerned that
it would stretch the right way on one leg, but not the right way on the other.
Yeah, or it doesn't stretch the right way on either leg.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then too, it also depends on the size of mend that you're doing. Like so in an ideal world, you'll observe that your pants are falling apart, and you'll mend it before you get a hole. And you can use a smaller patch, and you're not trying to cover such a big area. But I do have, and I have a sample of some other jeans where I had a needle, took the needle out.
It is around there.
It's right there. No, that's the other one. Whatever. Doesn't matter. It's all gravy. I'll poke myself with it later, I'm sure. But I can show where I went with a smaller, more conservative patch, and then that more conservative patch, I've worn out the area outside of the patch. And so I'm going to have to either do a bigger patch over it.
Oh, there it is. Because it's a smaller needle, it was hidden.
And I'm going to use my little threader thingy because this is a little bit thicker thread. So with these, I would say, this is a lot of stitching, so it will take quite a while. The hardest part is actually setting up the original patch and placing everything and getting it flat and where you want. And then once you're stitching, you can kind of come and go as you please and set it up and put it down. And so like doing something like this is probably like, this could be a 3 or 4 hour excursion with all of these stitches. So with this one, I did put a knot on it because with this being a patch, I can actually scooch in and I can put the knot between the patch and the outside layer, and no one's gonna see where it is, and you're not gonna feel it. So I'm gonna pick the seam side. So I'm gonna go down through here. So I'm in between the, where am I? So I went in between the patch and the main fabric. And then I'm just trying to.
Is it good to wear thimbles sometimes for?
Yes, so I have a set that I never use, and then I complain that my thumbs hurt, and because, you know, I'm better than that. No, I'm not at all. I'm just dumber than that. So I do actually have some here if somebody wants to give it a go with it. And, you know, it really just depends on the fabric that you're doing, how easy or hard it is to load it in. So normally I probably would have started a little bit higher, but it doesn't matter. So this is just your a basic running stitch where you're going over and under. So I have a template, but I don't need to actually line up the specific stitches. So you're wanting to capture the patch below and then come up all the way through. And I'm just following my lines along. And once I have the whole area complete, I'll be able to just put this in some hot water. Like I just put it in the sink in some hot water, and this paper totally dissolves. It makes it a little bit slimy, so then and then it was a little bit crunchy, but I just threw them through the washer after, and it's just like there was never anything there. You do not need to use this. You don't need to invest in this kind of paper, but if you're like, I really want perfect straight lines, or I want to do a crazy pattern, you know, I want to do a drawing, or I want to write a saying, or I don't know, whatever you're into. This is a great tool to do that. So now I'm just gonna go up a row and head back. So you kind of pick directions to go along in. So this is where it takes more, it's a little bit fussy, so it's good TV watching kind of thing.
During the day, so
Yeah.
daylight.
So you like
It depends on your lighting in your house. So are you, I like everything dim and no lights on, then it's not a TV thing, but, and yeah, it's just something that you can pick up and put down and work at it as you want. So, and then the knots at the end are the same kind of one that I did before, just a little, loop it around a couple of times. And because you're doing so many stitches with these throughout, you're not going to, if it comes unraveled, it's only going to unravel so far. And also once you've washed it in that, the threads kind of bond with the other fabric. So it's not like the whole thing is all going to unravel. You might get the odd, like if you didn't do a tight enough knot or something, maybe one or two threads come loose, but.
So you're kind of going back and forth on the same little section first, like you said, start.
I am
in the
with this
middle.
one. So
Yeah.
with this one, I did a whole vertical line, and then I came back and I went back and forth, and then I would catch these little side ones as I came up to them.
Oh, okay. And you only did, and you said you only do knots as you lose the thread, as you run out of thread.
Yeah, as
and
I
then you
run
go
out of
on.
thread, and then they, some of them have instructions to not, with Sashiko, not do any knots, and you just overlap a couple of stitches, but I feel like that just feels like more complicated to me.
It's pretty risky.
Well, it just feels like I'll probably do it wrong. So that's what we've got there. So that's sort of
That's
two
cool.
ideas with like one idea with patching and one with weaving. So why don't we have a look at what you guys have brought, and do you have any inspiration on something that you've brought that you want to do? You want to try something different? Do some embroider a pattern on, fill in a hole. And I've got all sorts of different yarns and threads and stuff like that, and needles and what have you to help you out with.
What do you do if you have a pair of
Yeah,
jeans
like
and you don't have the jean material?
Underneath.
Do you like buy jean patches?
You
or
can,
pass
or
it to
you
your
can
outfit?
use if you have another like similar weight fabric like canvas, you could use something like that. Or
Okay.
yeah, you could say, hey Tara, do you have any denim? Because I got a whole bunch here.
Yeah.
I've like cut the pant legs off with 3 pairs of jeans, so.
It's good for
Just-
short people. I cut my pants off and I always have it.
Oh, you always have a patch. That's perfect.
So, sorry, Tara, I noticed that there are some going vertical and some going horizontal. What
Yeah,
is
so it's
that?
just a little pattern. And so as I was
Oh, is this
coming
the
up
actual-
to it, yeah,
She did.
Oh, this is the pattern.
that's the pattern.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I thought you
So you're-
purposely did that for a reason. Oh,
No,
okay.
that was just the
Pants, same
pattern.
place,
Do you
Yeah.
mind
same idea, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, have a look.
And I also have
What do you have there?
going through and
I like
Those are pretty.
tore it. Like it's just like a really nice blouse, but I turned around and I tore it like this.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so that's something that you could do, like a weave on, or you could put a little patch behind, and you could like just embroider on a little pattern over it. And that's something where, like, if you wanted with something like this, because it's small enough, you could, if you wanted to draw something on, you could put a little patch behind it and just like stitch on, I don't know, a flower or
A heart.
a heart, or I have some white yarn as well that could be used for like doing a weave thing.
yeah. A white
But
leaf.
the other one probably
wait,
better
yeah.
to start with something less visible.
Yeah, like if you wanted.
So like the
Totally.
learner piece, the starter piece.
A bigger hole.
Before I go into
Yeah, yeah.
Something
you
less
practice.
visible.
I
You
would
practice
suggest a
things.
little smaller hole because.
Everybody sees high risk.
High risk.
I always
Practice
I,
items are great
I
too. I
remember
practiced
that.
on my son's clothes.
That's
I guess especially if you want to try the new techniques, too, like the patterns and everything. That's a good call.
I think you're right to do that, because this, I think you could make it really subtle once you've had some
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
Because it is on it, like it's sort of right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard that the smaller the hole, the better that is to tackle it before it gets bigger.
Yes, and because too, you're impacting less of the fabric around
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Now I'll have more of an eye on that type of thing too. So where the wearing's going, it's like, okay, it's gonna happen soon.
Yeah,
1 or 2 wears or washes.
yeah, yeah. If you can tackle things ahead of time, it just goes better.
Are you finally using some of your denim?
You sure can.
Okay.
Thank
I have
you.
a hole in the armpit area.
Oh,
Oh,
So
look
there's
at that.
like 2 seams going through, right? Because there's
Oh,
the seam
yeah.
that goes around the cuff and then the seam that goes to.
Yep. So I would probably pick one to close up first, and then
Oh,
pick the
okay.
other.
Pick the
Like,
other one,
nice.
okay.
so you could do like close up the arm,
And then the body.
and then
I think I wouldn't do the body. No.
either way, whatever floats your boat.
Okay.
But I think that might be
Yeah.
one thing to do is like pick one
One?
seam and then pick the other. And then do you think you would want to like patch it, or
But
because there's
if I pick the arm, like wouldn't it be really tight for the body? I don't know how to know how to close it because it's like too.
you gotta unroll where the
Perfect. Perfect. Water bottle.
Seems
Another
like you-
reason to have a water bottle.
Then you can measure.
fabric is running.
I'm gonna try my easy
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, this is the original. The other.
Yeah.
And so it just slip open.
I think I might need to get smaller
So
scissors.
maybe
That might
with
be
the
a
arm.
smart move. I have the bigger ones.
Because then, once you get that, then you can kind of ease the other part in, or you can do that and then put a little triangle patch in. It's a,
Okay.
so like here, on this one where it was wearing thin, I did I have a patch. So I did that. So I pinned it, so I used an embroidery hoop to hold it open. I put and then I pinned, so this is just some t-shirt material
Yeah.
that I had. And I pinned it down and then I just stitched a little, first I went like around the outside to hold it and then I just did a little whip stitch.
Okay.
This is what that's what I did on that. But like it wasn't gaping wide open, but it was like there was holes along that seam.
Yeah.
But so I put a patch underneath it, and so you don't see the patch, but I have the
Right.
patch there to give
Okay,
the
yeah.
extra stability.
Yeah.
And I do have some like t-shirt material that you could use as
So then with the patch,
You know, I
I
found
would.
that I had that too.
I would.
Just random
Let me
threads.
start
It must
first.
have been like
Craft.
maybe they're getting it
I
from
don't
someone
know.
else's.
Maybe. Oh, I really wish I hadn't thrown out those jeans.
well, I guess
Like,
you
so
could
disappointed. And then all
just
the crazy
do one
scraps
that's
going
the-
forward. So
And
now
they
I'm like,
fit well because you wore them out, right?
exactly.
'Cause you
And so
could just do a patch that's along there, sew it on.
it's like I kind of
and then
knew I
close it
needed
up
them,
as
but
much
if I
as
did
you
that with
can.
everything, my house would be cluttered.
Like
Yeah. Then you do
Is
the
like
things you
the-
care for.
Exactly. Right.
that's pulled apart, which is part of what's making it seem weird, is like the fabric is stretched there. You could try getting this closed and then sort out what you want to, then you could do like a bit of a patch there, and so it might show up a little bit.
Yeah, I think I gotta do the arm first. Okay.
So this is some
T-shirt material.
t-shirt material.
Okay.
Here we go, rock and roll.
What you
I
got,
do
Jana?
I only used something that's ripped because I didn't have any
That's
to
fine.
mend. So,
Blue
but I
thread.
thought I would just bring it, and so this is just a little shirt that I really like to wear.
Yeah.
And it's not the biggest thing, but it would be nice. I'm embarrassed. I'm getting recorded. Showing this.
Nobody can see it.
Okay. So I'm just gonna like fix the hole.
Fix
Like,
the hole.
Yeah, like put this together, like re-sew it. Oh, looks like I've sewn this before.
Here we go.
Because I can't replace them either. It's like one of those things where you love
Oh,
it
yeah,
and they
yeah,
don't
yeah.
have them, and
Oh,
or
is
actually
that-
Jockey
oh.
doesn't make them the same.
Yeah.
Or
You
not. So
already
yeah,
have
what I
the
kind of
curtain.
just re-sew it. I guess I might just re-sew right from here though, eh?
Yeah.
Sew the whole thing.
Yeah, and like,
Do
yeah,
you, like,
catch first.
pull it? 'Cause it's
Yeah.
stretchy.
I would totally, and like, use some straight pins and
I
put
met
lots
with
of
my
them
girlfriend today, and I
in
was-
there.
and she
Okay.
So like,
Perfect.
said, "How much you
I got
make?
those.
would make one
Yeah.
for
Okay.
each color."
Yeah, I would
So
put,
wear this
like,
outfit.
put a bunch of them, so then as you're going, it's still all kind of lined up.
Perfect. I will do that. Thank you.
You're thinking the socks, yeah?
She's got
I'm
her
gonna
own-
do-
Oh, you're gonna do your,
She made her own mushroom.
I brought both.
Yeah?
This one's really big.
do you wanna use
So I
one of
thought I
my
would
mushrooms
start-
instead of your water bottle?
I think this is okay.
Let's get you an elastic band to hold it tight if that's what
sure.
you're wanting to do.
Okay. Or you know
'cause-
what? I'll use if you have extra mushroom, I'll use a mushroom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Might be need to try it.
Give the mushroom a try.
And I'm gonna do black on black for this one, but for the green ones, I'm gonna do
You
like
know,
the
we could
fancier
make those.
color.
Yes.
That could be a little
I
silly.
love your
I'm so
pins
excited
things.
because I
Oh,
know
these
Yeah.
little things.
Yeah.
this is an
Thanks.
elbow. I
It's a
know
bit
where
tight,
this
but
is.
it's just an old school one, I think.
Yeah.
They used to have
So
these
then it's
ones at
okay
computer.
that
They had
it's
them when
looking
I
a bit
did
big because then
grade eight,
when it
grade
comes in,
nine
it'll shrink all
sewing.
down and goes up.
And I just found this embroidery
That's awesome.
thread.
So I have,
We had to.
if
but
you're
I was
interested,
excited because
okay,
my mom felt like
um,
it was for me to
and
do
you
it.
can say, no, I'm not, Tara.
Oh, it was elective. Yeah, our first in grade 8, you could do. You had everyone, even the boys. You had a quarter of everything.
I
So you
have
had
this.
a
This
quarter
is
of the
actually
year
what your
of sewing,
wrap was.
quarter of home ec, a quarter of woodworking, and a quarter of metalworking.
Oh.
And then
Oh,
the
yeah,
next
you
year
could
you
use your
could pick
black.
if you
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to
Use
take
the black.
them as a more
Yeah.
half a year elective.
And then so basically I should do it.
so I got to do
like,
all that stuff,
pretty
which is
big.
kind of cool.
Yeah, and
Go
then you get
from
to know
here.
how to woodwork because
Yeah, not be
Yeah.
scared. I don't know
Over
if
to
I
there.
can remember
Yeah.
from
And
30
then-
years ago, but
Will you do this
still,
way
it was
first
kind of
or
a good
this way
idea to
first,
have a
or does it
chance to
matter?
do it.
It doesn't really matter. I usually go
Well, I
north-south
was
first,
old
but
enough
it
and my
you're
school was
making a weave.
backwards
It doesn't
enough.
Am I
matter.
trying to follow
You
like
only
this
could
line?
do
I wouldn't worry at all about that
Like
because
woodworking and
especially with doing
drafting
black on black,
or
you're not
sewing
gonna.
and cooking.
Oh,
So,
bummer.
You're not gonna see.
Woodworking and drafting.
Right
I was only
on.
the second or third girl in my school ever to
Oh
do
my god, that's
drafting
awesome. Good for you.
It was good though.
That's
I-
really good. Good for you to like do it.
How are you
yourself.
doing?
That's what
You're
these
fine,
young
yeah.
do, I
Yes.
think. Be the only
Those
girl.
pens have been sitting in my drawer for a couple of years. You go ahead and use those pens. How's it going,
I see-
Stephanie?
Good. I see what you mean about the
The direction of the
yeah.
denim?
I was just thinking
Like the
but I
stretch?
can see this and you couldn't see it. Yeah, no, it's the it's because you have the paper over
Yes.
top and you can't see the hole when the paper's there.
Yes, that
Yeah,
is
so-
true. And
yeah.
then so you would have the option on if you wanted to like trim these threads
Yeah,
ahead of
I
time,
think
or you
that
could
might-
leave them as they are. I would probably like trim.
These are true,
these
yeah,
ones,
because
but
they're
then
kinda
leave
knotty. This has little
those.
knots in it, yeah. But I was gonna say I see what you mean about like the preparation and getting it to lie really flat is really important, and it takes a little time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then kind of once you're going, it's not so bad. And yeah, so if you wanted to, you could draw a pattern, or you could just freestyle it all. There's another thing. Sometimes what they do is you could clean this up even a little bit more, and you could sort of turn it under or whip stitch around this and like stitch this directly to the patch, and then do
Yeah.
a bigger square. Or I find that the Shishiko takes longer, but adding all those threads
It makes
adds
it so
some
secure.
durability.
Yeah, because I've already sewn these up once, and you can. Well, but I did it with regular thread. You can see a little bit of it right
Yeah.
here, but it's already all pulled open.
Yeah.
And that was like after only a couple of wears. I was gonna ask you about once you've done these techniques, is there anything special that you should be doing when you wash? Like
Nope.
not putting them in the dryer?
I wash and dry and wear the heck out of them, and sometimes wear it down even more. What can I help you find?
Where's the darning needle?
Darning needle. This was one of them.
I have so much trouble with putting it there. I love the idea of just giving the
And then, did you want to try some Shishiko thread, or have you got something you were wanting to use?
Sorry, was that referred to me? The
No.
question? Oh, somebody?
Stephanie.
you know that I brought like a matching thread with it.
Did you want to use some of this, or so you want to go with a dark one?
Yeah.
I have a
Yeah.
blue thread. Oh, if you want to do something that's
Oh,
similar,
yeah,
Like, do you
this one
want-
is
I have some
similar.
this if you need.
But do I
just
need
like
to go like with a thicker one or just like the regular one?
Usually a craft thread is more durable, but you can absolutely use all-purpose thread if that's what you have and want to
That's a good
use.
point.
So you could. So this is the thicker and similar color, or what have I got in my? I also have sparkles. I have some navy all-purpose thread if that's.
I think I have this kind. Oh, I thought I
because we didn't totally make a mess on the table at all.
It was like a small thing, but I couldn't just like thought about it.
How's it going?
Are you looking for a navy thread?
Yeah,
like
you're
a
doing
little
like
one,
that.
I
Oh,
thought
little
it was
one?
like
A fancy color.
But it's nice for your
Comes
sweater,
it in your
right?
bag?
It's one of my favorite sweaters, and I don't really.
She did have a navy one in her.
Yeah, I have a navy one if you
but
just
like
wanna.
it was one from
It was
Costa
yours?
Rica. I wanted to use it, right? So
Oh.
like it's easier to go with like what I
It's in your purse?
What did you need? Navy thread?
Well,
Yeah,
she's looking for her navy
and if I
thread.
brought
I
it,
have navy thread too, just
Like-
by chance.
but like mine is the same one I have at home, right?
Oh, it's the same fabric color.
Yeah.
Maybe you thought you brought it, but you left it at home?
Maybe it is a high possibility.
Because I've done that too. It's like, oh, I brought it, but
Yeah.
I actually didn't.
So that's where the visible mending goes well, Christy, when the thread is totally different color than what you're trying to do. When I was talking to Stephanie about the place, I was like, we need somewhere with good natural light.
Yeah.
For the location, exactly.
Because I knew you would be doing a black on black. Do you want to use this, or you're welcome to it? Or we've got-
To the one that I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a regular sewing thread. So I've got lots of the white sashiko.
So you can take your,
And then-
you can do your,
red, white, cream.
do yours and then take a photo of it and send it to your mom, because she knows how to do this, you said, right?
Yes.
I've got
Well, I mean, not
embroidery
at, like, this, like,
floss
fancy
and some
levels.
different
They just, like,
colors.
Basic.
Basic
Yeah.
things,
Multicolored.
clothes and
My mom never
I'm
did any
thinking
hand,
you
my
should
mom
be
was not a
using something
handicraft lady.
Other than like strong
I think it was
regular
mostly from
thread.
necessity and then
But-
from like, you know, just like loving.
Do you want to try some?
Yeah, oh, totally, well, I think that's what it was, right? And I think
something
it's good to
that's-
go back to that kind of, just keep
You
yourself
don't
longer.
want it super
Things that you
visible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be
Well,
good.
I
Yeah.
want to like fancy at
So,
Joe Fresh for like
is there-
$40. The
I
time
mean,
to
it's
fix
easy. I
them
feel like
will
there's
cost me
a
$400 at
Japanese
minimum.
Do they have?
Oh my
And
God.
if I wanted to charge at the rate
I
charge,
don't know, but
it would be
like
Dolce Gabbana, right?
I
Yes.
actually
And
learned
then
some
you're
of this
like, are
stuff
they
because
worth
I did a
this? Like, am I
class
gonna
by
get that many
Aruna
clicks?
who
I don't
has
know,
this
right?
book.
Well, but like the part that thinks about
She did
you
when
know,
they were doing the
why-
virtual
why
Knit
were
City.
they $40 to begin with?
She did classes on it, and that was when I learned how to
Yes,
do
that's
some.
true.
I mean, I'd
Well, I
kind of
think
been
it's what
playing
people
around
are
with it
paid,
before
you
that,
know,
but
unfortunately.
Yeah.
My friend,
Alright,
a
I'll try this.
seamstress,
okay.
got a job, she applied for Arc'teryx to be a seamstress
Yeah.
there. And she got to, I think, the second interview, but she found it was only like $17 or
Let's go,
$18 an
Christy.
hour. She's like,
Great.
I can't live off that.
Looking good. You're
Wow.
gonna be so happy. Your
I
favorite
bet.
sweater is gonna have
Like
its
a-
whole clothes.
Well, they're
I
yeah,
was gonna have to,
$400,000
like,
if they're made
pick
in
up the
Canada. Yeah, that's what I've been
stitches
hearing, right?
Basically
So
knit it.
I was
So
like,
it's
wow,
pretty
that
cool.
sucks. Like, so she stayed with her other seamstress job that she makes better money on.
Am
I don't
I-
think it's
Am I
like
supposed to be,
tons more. It's not like $50 an hour, but you know,
like, so
probably
when I get to the
maybe
top, am I supposed to be
20,
doing
22,
another stitch?
that adds
Yeah,
up.
do that thing and become like
Yeah.
Every buck adds up,
Doesn't
right? When you're
matter.
single and you live on your
Over.
own and everything, right?
Yeah, and like it's per
And
hour,
then I
right?
just go back down, but
Yeah.
it's not, it's.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
like
that's what
it's
she
more
said.
about
I was
getting
really
it
shocked,
secured
actually. If more people
to,
knew that, they might be more shocked. I don't know why it
like
takes to
sturdy
make the
fabric
jackets,
around
but
it and
thought
not
that was
pulling so tight
interesting.
that you pull it all out of whack.
Okay, that was the reason that
So
I
yeah,
thought
when
that
you're
people buy from
getting
them
2 or
because
3
they
around
are
it,
made-
then
yeah.
you're
It's
getting
made in
into that
Canada.
sturdy area.
It's not what you
$17
call
an
a
hour is-
livable wage,
Yeah.
but maybe you
Especially in
don't.
Vancouver.
Yeah, well, I think you could probably make more money at Starbucks, and I'm pretty. I don't know what the benefits are, but
Well, yeah, but you have tips and stuff.
yes, you can at least get tips at Starbucks. Exactly. Actually, I heard at JJB they make like they average around $21 an hour because of the tips.
Sewing the arm.
Yeah, I ever heard the owner conversation.
And you know, before I used to use threads,
So
I was
that's
like,
not
maybe I
bad,
should use
is it? That was
embroidery
before it
'cause
just
it's,
went
like,
up a bit.
thicker and really gonna hold that.
Well, and with embroidery floss, you can kind of pick, like, do I want all 6 threads or
Susie,
do I only
It
want
has to do with the
3 of
automatic
the, like
tip
you,
thing being
you have
on
some
the-
flexibility on
That's
how
really
much of
added
it
up a lot, right? People are
you're-
doing that.
Yeah,
you're using.
I mean,
Yeah.
people are just like not paying attention and just.
They just do it this way. Yeah, because sometimes I'm like,
Out, I'm doing
no,
it
you
not.
can't always afford to
Can I
pay
do
tips
it
on
up
something
here, or
that's
do I-
like
should I
not
take it
good,
off
but
and do it
I
It's
know.
just like, you know what, I need to go.
Um,
I need to figure out this machine. I
kinda
wanna
wanna
You
know
know
do
how
it
what?
to
Leave it.
Exactly.
I would leave it off so that you've got
Exactly.
lots. Just do this and
Yeah.
start with a new one because you want to leave enough that you can get it back through. But you can leave them hanging until you have the whole thing done,
I was
Okay.
just
and
first of
then
all-
go back and
first off,
finish those ends.
finding my thread and getting it in, and I thought, thought maybe I would just look at the book a little bit to get inspired with some sort of pattern stuff.
This one has a whole bunch of patterns that are crazy. There's some like sheets in the back.
Oh yeah.
And then that one there just sort of has like 3 it's got some nice elaborate
That's cute. I'd do something like that.
so then you just
I would do the
like it has the number here in the back. We'll have what number it is on the sheets in here, and then
have to say I'm kind of lazy. I might just freehand.
totally. Well, I've got some rulers too, so if you
Yeah.
wanna like,
I think I have some chalk too if you want to like draw it up or something.
yeah, I have chalk pencils that I forgot to sharpen.
Oh, I've just got a square. I've got a square, not like I really know how
Oh,
to
I
use
have
it.
marking pens too in
Yeah.
my bag from sewing. So
Yeah, I know that some of those ones that fade, like sometimes they fade before you finish all the
Oh.
stitching,
Really?
depending on the kind of pen you have.
oh yeah, this has tons of patterns.
Yeah, so this one doesn't really tell you anything about how to mend, but it has the patterns.
yeah.
So I would say this is like once you know you're like dedicated to doing it, you want to have fun
Yeah.
stuff. This one is, I think, really good on like fundamentals of mending everything, and it's got like cute little stories, and it's a great book. And then Aruna's is also very good on like steps for mending, and it also has patterns on like how to make a little mending kit and how to make a bag, and and it also has some things on like if you've worn out the edge of a seam, like shirt tail or something, like, or like finishing, like if you've worn out the pocket edge and you want to cover it up. She's got lots of other stuff. She does amazing videos. Like her YouTube and Instagram are high recommends. I put them like her.
She's in the notes.
She's in the notes. Just because like sometimes it's, even if you're not going to do it, it's just the inspiration of, oh, I didn't know you could do that, or that's how you would do that, and then you can like bookmark it to watch it later.
Yeah. There we go.
How's it going?
I'm doing Starry Night.
Starry Night.
Starry Night.
Nice. Perfect.
I like how you did it on your pens.
Oh, that's perfect that you got like just the perfect fabric for behind it. Is it the same stuff or just coincidentally?
Same stuff, I'm short, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, that's so good. I don't know how to use it.
So way to
Yeah.
go.
No. It's like perfect.
You're better.
That's the reason to keep those little bits, right?
Yeah, there's the reason why I've got all the leftover bits of yarn. This is not even a sprinkling of how much extra stuff I have.
And you made this time.
I did.
Well, you should really join our knitting club, which starts in the fall.
Was it knitting club? That was
That's
a sewing
right.
club.
Well, then
Oh, there's a
our
sewing
sewing
club.
club transforms into knitting
Oh,
club.
okay. I'm all in. I'm all in on knitting.
So then you have a new recruit.
You're recruiting.
Sometimes Stephanie does things, and then I sit in the backseat of her car. We're on road trips, and I fix things. I dropped a stitch. Okay, I got it.
She completes some of Chrissy's projects.
Yeah, with mine, I just.
When she does Chrissy's terrible finishing.
Yeah, I feel I was complicit in the acquisition of certain things. It's like, oh, I should complicit in the purchase of that yarn. I can't let her not do it.
So, Sarah, when I was getting my stuff out of here, had to go through my yarn box and it
That's
made me
another-
think, I wanted to do a project.
And then you thought, well, then Tara would be doing one too.
Those are a little easier to
Close
work
it
with
back
there.
up, I know. I have 2 projects that are not finished at home. Not sewing ones, but all types of projects. I tried to make one of those, a reed, but with that brown stuff. What's that stuff called? It's like it's not it's that brown fabricy wavy stuff. It's like burlap. I tried to make a burlap reed, and I'm like, I used a lot of the fabric. They come in rolls, so I only got a second roll, and then I haven't finished it because I'm like, I'm not sure if I even like the way it looks as it is. I'm like, oh. I'm half debating just pulling it apart. Oh, what happened here?
Are there needles for embroidery? Do they have like a bigger hole and?
Yes, so there are
Just wondering. I'm trying when I
they would
go
call
to
them tapestry needles,
tapestry
and they have a
needles.
blunt tip on them. So
A blunt tip. Why?
yeah, because often you're using them like the fabric that you're. Well, some embroidery would be like a sharper needle, and some
Yeah.
of them are more blunt. So let's say you're doing cross stitch or something like that.
It's usually.
There's already a hole there, so you're not trying to break through a hole. So
Those are the blunt. Oh.
so these would be
Oh,
are
yeah.
thicker ones, but I have some. I have one in my knitting case that I can show you. That would be they're finer, but they're not as pokey. And they would be commonly used in embroidery. Just because typically embroidery cloth are a more open weave,
Right.
and
But sometimes isn't like embroidery done on like veils or very chiffon, very light, thin material?
yes. So then you would want
Actual
want that's
embroidery
like
sharps like these. They're very
Yeah.
thin, fine needles.
Yeah. Okay.
so some of them would be more like this. So it's a thin needle,
Yeah.
but it's got a big
it's
enough
got
eye
Yeah.
to go through. But they're not. Yeah, the type of needle you need really depends on the fabric and the yarn or thread that you're using. So that's how we wind up with a million of them. So I need this for this, and I need this for that.
Right. So my hole is definitely smaller now.
There you go.
What will?
Oh wow! Look at that.
So one, yeah.
So
now
then you
this
might.
part, which, you know,
You might be able to do the same.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I don't know. Continue. What do you think?
Well, if you wanna. Sometimes it helps looking at it from the right side. So you could just, kind of like what Jana's doing, where she's using a bunch of pins, just easing it in, so it doesn't look gathered, but it's also,
What do you?
so like put a pin here and then move it over a little bit and put a pin in there, and you're actually just sort of squishing this larger amount of fabric into the smaller space, and you could go down just a little bit more than you would have.
Okay.
And that will kind of suck it all in. And then you wouldn't need to patch.
Oh, okay. Do the pins just hold it in place, or can
Yeah.
I just do this free hand?
The
Let's make it
pins
easier.
will hold it so you don't like wind up going do, and then wind up having a boop.
Oh.
The pins just keep you on track
Okay.
for spacing your
Okay,
mend.
So just gather. Okay.
Yeah.
See, things I didn't even know. Okay, and then once I had done that, so I have this apron.
Mm-hmm.
One of the straps came off, probably because I don't know, it was too thin or.
You
I
just
don't know
gotta
how to
go.
put it back.
Like, what else do you have to
I
do?
would just have it like just overlap it and stitch through there, and then you might wanna.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So
It's
like
like
it
a
won't be
sewing
stuck
machine.
inside. Yeah, totally.
Oh.
And then if you do it with a
Like
sewing
this
machine,
one.
Yeah,
you could
I
do like 3 or 4,
Yeah.
like,
I have a little
and then it's not
edges
going
with
anywhere.
holes
Okay.
because of
Yeah.
the mud.
Oh yeah,
So
for
this
sure.
is
that-
supplement
yeah.
and would like work really
By
well.
myself, like I'm not
Yeah,
able
absolutely.
to
Well,
know
that's
what
what-
to do.
Just wing it.
Or I
See,
just
how are you
feel
feeling?
I know it's the
What
best
you're
thing to
Christine?
do.
'Cause, like,
Okay.
worst
Black on
case
black's
scenario,
fine,
you
though,
probably
right?
have a
It makes
seam
it
ripper.
harder, but then it'll be more
Yeah.
invisible.
Pull it back out and do it
Exactly.
again.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. They're not
There's-
permanent. They can
If you're
be
not
undone.
cutting something, none of this is permanent.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like knitting. Like unless you like cut your knitting, it's not permanent. You can unravel it and use the yarn for something else if it sucked.
Sarah will,
Okay.
Sarah will teach you how to mend it at the end. you can just use the mending technique.
May I use pins?
Yes. Have some here.
I'm not finding my thread. Thank you.
How did did you get into mending?
My well, probably first was darning socks that I knit and like refusing to get rid of them because I really liked them and I knit them and I wanted to continue having them, so I fixed the hole. And then when my son went from daycare into kindergarten, I don't know what happens at kindergarten, but none of his pants kept any of their knees. But he also does not like a hole in the knee of his pants.
Right.
So I had to figure out, and then that was when I was kind of seeing more of the visible mending and just doing patterns or like taking like patches of like from crazy different fabric and putting that in rather than trying to hide it and make it invisible. It was just, well, he doesn't care if he's got some dinosaur flannel underneath his camouflage, like in the hole of his camouflage pants. Like, he just wants to not have a hole in his pants anymore.
Yeah.
It's really good.
And then just seeing more of it, around on Instagram, and some of it just looked cool, and it seemed like a good use of my time. Yeah, like a lot of the, like, I think the mending with jeans and stuff like that. And then too, because I'm short, I have to hem all my jeans, but I don't like hemming them on a sewing machine. I feel like I don't do it right, and I also don't want to pay somebody to hem them. And so my choice is, do I roll them up and then I started doing some different hems with embroidery floss and stuff like that, and I'll just make a pattern.
So like that's what you did, like.
Yeah, that's just me
these ones.
being too short.
Looks very
Yeah,
cute.
and then
Really cool.
I did these ones where,
Oh, that's good.
and like I didn't
Oh,
even, I
wow,
probably
what?
should have cut off this part because now you can tell where it is, but it turns out I don't care.
That's really good.
Because if you're spending that much time looking at my ankles, then
Yeah.
That looks very professional.
you have other
Yeah.
life choices to make.
So the mending techniques go to also being like hemming and
Yeah, and
So-
like I have a dress that I bought that the neck is too wide, like the shoulders are too broad, but the rest of the dress fits. So I'm just gonna do like a box pleat at the neck, because that brings it in.
That's what we did on the back of
Yeah.
his top because it was too wide.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna do
Oh,
a
is
box
that why you
pleat
have
and
that
then
cute that cute thing in the back. Oh.
yeah, and because mine is like a dress that's from a store and has facings, and I'm not gonna take it all apart. But I'm gonna do the box pleat, and then I'll just like wrap the top in some embroidery floss that's colored and
Beautiful.
make a decorative little thing at the back of the neck, but just to pull it in so you can. It's not all just mending. Some of it's alterations, and but you could also if something's too boring, you can stitch a little pattern on it, stick a flower on it, whatever, and make it your own.
Put a bird on it. I saw actually one of those sewing shows competitions, and they did that Japanese. What's it called? The Japanese
Sashiko.
sashiko. They did sashiko as part of the like clothing patterns they were making,
Yeah.
which is really neat.
Yeah, there's another Japanese thing called kintsugi, and that's when it's the idea of something that's broken and mended is superior to the original. So you mend it so it's visible because you can see like the time and care that's gone into the mend.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
so that's
cool.
often like broken
It's
pottery.
loved, and
Yeah.
it's
Oh.
important enough to.
So you
Right
might
there.
have seen it. It's often done with gold. So
Yeah.
you might have seen it. It's like gold. Like you might see a broken cup, and then it's got lines of gold where it's been repaired.
I think there's a version of Korean mending that also does their mending with gold thread. That would be similar to sashiko, but they actually use like gold thread, and it's the same idea of this, celebrating the life lived of this thing you're mending and
That's super
the
cool.
appreciation. And how's it going, Christy?
Pretty good.
Pretty
I
good.
figured that there's some gaps, but there's gaps in regular
Yeah.
mending
Mhm.
anyway, so.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
gold,
yeah.
Because I'm thinking
And like when you're wearing it, you're not even gonna notice. You'll know that it's there because you put it there, but
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would look cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In any color.
So I think for the sake of recording and all that, I'll wrap up the lesson, but I'm not wrapping up our work.
Perfect.
How does that sound?
Sounds
Yes.
good. Have you guys found this valuable? Do you think have you learned anything that you didn't know before that you think you could take this forward and work on this at home?
1000%.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Even just on some of the tools that you said, like I was doing something and I'm like I could struggling so much with the threading because I didn't have one of those little needle threaders, but like the darning needles, like the longer ones, and that was just that right there. I was like, oh my god, I'm buying some right away.
Or go check your mom's drawers. Maybe she's got some.
I've already ravaged through whatever I have came from her house.
And so have you seen these techniques before, or was it new, or brand
I've
new?
never seen the Japanese technique, so that was new to me. Also, what was new to me was knowing something about the materials and how they can be a bit helpful in terms of cutting down the time you spent. I mean, I know they're not necessarily
They're not
necessary,
required.
yeah. But it was still really interesting and cool to see them, like the mushroom wooden dar for that. And then also just like the mentality, like the conscious effort of knowing like what happens to our fabric and textile, like, and you were reading about those facts, how much people just buy and throw out and not be able to reuse it or take care of our clothing, and just having more of that mentality of taking care of our environment and the earth.
Yeah, I thought that was staggering, like 2.5 years worth of water
Yeah.
for a cotton shirt.
Yeah, for a
Yeah,
t-shirt.
for a cotton shirt. Like,
Yeah.
okay, maybe I could fix that hole, or at least keep it, even if it's a junker shirt or own home, and not just be like, oh, I'm done.
Like, I think I think I have a little bit trying to change my mind in terms of, instead of buying new things, seeing what I already have and how I can use it, if there's anything that I need to fix.
Or sometimes, I mean, it's still fun buying clothes. It's not, it's fun buying new things, but sometimes, like, just thinking about what it's made of or where it came from. And, even when you look at some of the t-shirts at Costco, well, they're made in Canada, so you're not shipping. Like, it's not stuff that's being shipped across the country, or, maybe it's made locally, or ethical practices, or it's a much durable fabric that you won't need to mend. Maybe.
I think it's really interesting, like this is something that how I would like to expand from learning about this is that, in days gone by, people would not, like they would have such a more limited wardrobe, and yet there would be demands to change your clothes multiple times for different, like you wouldn't wear the same dress during the day that you would wear to the dinner table. So, but people would, women would remake their clothes and take something, it's kind of like Pretty in Pink, where you take the dress that you get from the thrift store and remake it into something else. And I think that's an area that I would like to get more into, like taking something you already have and changing it up to make it something different.
Marge Simpson and her Chanel outfit that she remade into like 12 different outfits or something like that when they had their country club membership. I mean, maybe not a reality, but that idea of transforming.
They do that a lot with wedding dresses. Like,
a
bride to be maybe is using her mom's or grandma's dress, but she remakes into something else, and it's like, that's so lovely.
So, do you think you have the tools or ideas to continue on, and like look at the things you have with a different view?
Absolutely. I have all this stuff sitting at home. Oh, except for the mushroom. I don't have mushroom.
But you have
I have
jars.
a jar.
And the water bottle.
If you got a hair tie and a water bottle, your gold and some elastic bands in a jar, a light bulb. There's lots of different options.
It's exciting.
Yeah, and it's nice that it's like something you can do and feel creative and feel good about what you're doing, but you're not having to, I mean, there are tools that you can buy, but most things are things you already have or are small pieces. It's not like you're investing in a new hobby where there's a lot of expensive equipment to purchase or that kind of thing too.
Low barrier to entry.
I think so.
Yeah, I feel so.
There's when I was started doing it, I did it with like my grandma's darning needles, craft scissors I already had, and I picked up some embroidery floss when I was at Walmart. Like,
Wow.
So my investment was 99 cents.
Wow.
And then the rest was, I think for the patches, we had receiving blankets that our son wasn't using anymore, and I cut up a receiving blanket to use that as patches inside of his pants. And
Wow.
I think it would be a good thing for mums, like a lot of mums, to learn how to do this and and to help their kids' clothes go further.
yeah. And some of the things that I've patched, like I've put them into when we put it into the donation pile because he's outgrown it, because it's like, really, it's perfectly good, and kids are buying clothes with ripped stuff in them already. So
Yeah.
But I think they also like a gift for somebody for Christmas, like I'm not getting you anything, but if you bring me your clothes with me to fix, this is a voucher.
Yeah,
This is
a
a great
Like,
idea.
I sometimes finish Christy's knitting projects. My gift to you is hand that over and I'm going to finish it for you.
Well, yeah.
That act of service.
Yeah.
And I just think, and with each stitch that you're putting into it, you're thinking about your clothes and how they've served you and how they're going to serve you forward. And if you're doing it for somebody else, you're thinking about them while you're doing it. And acts of gratitude and building that connection with how your clothes serve you. And all right, so go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say, like, even having this set up, but like bringing your friends together. It's like, oh, do you want to come over and like bring some of your whatever shirts that have holes, and we can talk, and like a very community activity to do.
And share resources too. Like I've got I brought denim that works for Stephanie. And, we've got thread, and different people have different things, and even further reducing the barriers to doing it.
Yeah, because we can help each other out and learn more, and
I wouldn't have.
Resources, but a great activity to do with friends.
Yeah, I wouldn't have
wanna
done
do
this
that.
if I hadn't been here.
Me neither.
Yeah.
And then you'd be thinking about that top sitting in your drawer that you refuse to get rid of.
And like back to what Stephanie said, but it makes you feel good, like knowing like what I learned, and right now like I'm gonna go home with a shirt that has no hole in it anymore. It's like, wow, what a productive morning or afternoon for me. Like,
Absolutely.
great.
Even
It
my
feels so good.
crappy little shirt here.
This hole has been here for probably a year. I haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, well, I think we all have that pile of stuff where I don't know how long I was wearing that sock with a hole in the toe, but I was like, it's in the top, my toe's not falling out, I'm just gonna keep putting it through the laundry. But now next time I wear it, I'll be like, oh, my toe's not gonna stick out. So I'll just thank everybody, and we'll just wrap up the recording, but we're not packing out because we're having too much fun, I think. Although if you want to leave, I'm not going to hold you nailed down. Before you go, I do have just some little handouts, so just have a little bit of reminder about what we talked about that has what you might want in your mending kit, and just kind of how to approach what you're looking at, assessing it, and what materials you want. I've listed the books that I have, some just reminder tips on how to darn and how to do sashiko or adding a patch, and a couple of people that are worth following on Instagram or YouTube because I find them inspirational, and some of them do tutorials through little videos, so you'd be like, oh, that's how you do that, and definitely different things than I covered off. And I'll also put out one of these that you could scan and do a little review of my performance. Give me some feedback on if this was good or bad or indifferent. So I'll put that out near the end, and you can just take a photo or whatever, and it will do an online thing, and it doesn't track you. It's all anonymous feedback. So, but with that, thank you Tristan and Stephanie for hosting us, and thank you for the space. Thank you for all of your time and patience with me. And I think we went way longer than we planned because we're having a great time.
Yeah.
It was very good.
I think I'm having a good time.
Yes,
I hope
I'm
you
having a
are.
good time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much,
Thank
Tara.
We can go eat more food.
Yeah. You can go to the bathroom now. I did just make fresh tea if anybody wants.